I'm so excited for this conversation with my good friend Kubi. Welcome to anybody who's listening or viewing or reading the transcript. I love having these conversations, and I'm extremely delighted that Kubi is here for this one. I met Kubi about a year ago in London.
Yeah.
We had lunch, and it was the most engaging lunch I can remember in the longest time. And not just because of Kubi's background, which hopefully you'll get to hear a little bit about, but just the flow of the conversation. I don't know if you remember that, Kubi. We didn't know each other.
Absolutely. We
And
could have went on.
I think our curiosity just allowed things to unfold, and it was just absolutely delightful. So thank you for taking time out of your Saturday on a rainy UK day, as you said. I hear it's been warm there. You've had
It
some heat
has,
wave.
yeah, I think we over the heat wave. But
I
yeah.
I hope so. I'm going to spend 6 weeks there. I hope to see you while I'm there. And
Yes.
I don't know if where I'm staying has AC, air conditioning, so I'll have to tough it out if not. So, welcome, welcome, everybody. I just want to frame this really briefly. I wanted to host this podcast series on curiosity because, one, I just very curious in general. Think I just came to the world that way. I think everybody has some level of curiosity, different types of curiosity, but I don't think we spend a whole lot of time seeing it in play and at work and how it helps us and when it shows up and what sparks it and what shuts it down. And so I'm just hoping that whoever's tuning in for this might become a little bit more curious about their own curiosity and see how it works in their lives. So you can access this through Substack or YouTube. I would love it if people subscribe to Substack. It's free and it just helps get the word out about these podcasts. I think we'll just go from there. So, Kubi, I'd like to turn it over to you to frame yourself in whatever way you want to, and we'll go from there.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Colleen. Firstly, thank you for this opportunity. Every conversation with you has been just, I mean, it's just been phenomenal. I could just talk and talk and talk and listen very often to you as well. And I think we have so much in common and the conversation just flows. So I am really pleased that I met you and we've continued this engagement over, I think, more than the last year, and looking forward to more sort of beautiful conversations in the future. Just for those listening in, so my name's Kubi. I'm based here in the UK, been here about 3 years. I have a background in psychology, but I'm South African. So I come from South Africa and working for a sort of a global company and qualified as an industrial psychologist. So curious about people always, I think I would say. And I mean, this topic just intrigued me as well. And more around, I had to do some thinking because we take things for granted, as we normally say. When you're born curious, you don't sort of question it. And so I was thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? Is this something inherent? Was I born curious, or is it something that I want to actually protect? Is it, something I want to keep? And that's sort of how I started thinking about the topic. And then I thought, yes, this is definitely something I need to protect, because I think very often we can very quickly close down when you're under pressure. And I think, this is where when I started thinking and looking at life-changing moments where it could have been very easy to shut down, to stop being curious, to just conform, stay in your lane, and go on with life. And I think that's where I start questioning how different my life would have been if I had done that. And that's where the protection came in. So I thought, yes, I need to protect my curiosity.
Oh, I love that, Kubi. It's something that hasn't come up before, and I agree with you. First of all, with you starting off by saying Is it inborn? Is it innate? Or is it something that, I think implied that the next part of the question is, do we develop it? I do think we're probably born with some brain structure that predisposes us to be curious, but it's certainly somebody in the last conversation, asked if it was a muscle. Is it like a muscle that can be exercised? And I think that goes along with what you just said about protecting it. But I love the framing of protecting our curiosity because that implies that it's valuable. And I do believe
Absolutely.
it's very valuable. And I don't even know where that whole curiosity killed the cat phrase comes from because it's just gives it a bad rep and it's just not
Absolutely.
fair. So yes, I remember our first conversation and when you were telling me about growing up in South Africa,
Yeah.
under apartheid, right?
Yes.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that your first job out of university was with the first post-apartheid
Yeah.
government, which
Absolutely.
is amazing. And I was thinking, as I started thinking about this podcast, I thought, I wonder if Kubi's curiosity, how that, this might be too big of a question here, but how that helped you, if it did,
Yes.
because that was a huge shift for you culturally.
Absolutely. And if I think back on, sort of growing up during apartheid and, you think that's where you started questioning, you question things. Why can't I do this? Why are things the way they are? That constant questioning. And I think I probably gave my parents a rough time. Well, I think all kids growing up in that would have given, sort of this constant questioning about why things are, why is it different? When I think of sort of the formative years and growing up in that sort of almost a bubble and environment, and I think I mentioned my dad was a psychologist, so he nurtured this, especially about people's behavior, being curious about people's behavior, and he sort of nurtured that in me, I think, to a large degree, or nurtured that in all of us as children, including my mum, but more so my dad. And I think a lot of that early formative years shaped my ability to transition because working for the South African government just after that was in 1995, just after the first election, first democratic election in 94. And it was, I can't explain it. To be alive in those times and to see that transition where it's cultures, it's opinions, it's egos, it's different ways of working, of doing things. It's all of it coming together and almost having the ability to take a step back, listen, observe, respect, to have empathy. I think those sort of values, and that's why I went back to my formative sort of years because you had to have all of that. If you didn't, you wouldn't, I don't think, I mean, you would survive, but I think you would be a extremely frustrated individual. So yeah, so that's thinking back, I think it's having those early formative years of having, I think, to some large degree, being nurtured to be curious about people, about everything in general, is what sort of carried me or transitioned me through those times.
It's so fascinating. I think I've suggested to you many times. Please write a book, Koofy. I'll help you somehow. I'll edit for you. So I'm feeling that same thing right now. Perhaps for some listeners and viewers, without making it into a history
Yeah.
lesson, some people may not realize that before apartheid ended, and in American English we say apartheid, but I heard you say apartheid, so I'm trying
Yeah.
to fit to that. Before apartheid ended, you didn't have contact with anybody outside of your ethnic group.
Yeah, so it was almost, you had contact, but you were in a bit of a bubble. You lived in segregated areas, you went to segregated schools. Publicly, yes, you'd interact with everybody, but majority of your life, you're in a bubble, you're segregated. Your friends are people that look like you, act like you, think like you. You have exposure, but it's just in this bubble. So your whole schooling career, you go through, and then you have access then, to read literature, and you see the rest of the world. You look at how people live and you start questioning from a very early age, why is it like this? Why does it have to be like this? Why can't I?
Was your curiosity satisfied, at all? Do you remember? Or because those are pretty big questions that
Yes.
were historically and societally and culturally
Yes, I
determined.
mean, I think to like kids growing up stifled, that's what it was. It was never, you could never find, I mean, you were given the answers, the appropriate answers. And it's again, yeah, I don't think it was, you didn't find all the answers. You didn't
Right,
find the
of course.
answers.
That makes sense, and I know that was a it was almost a rhetorical question because I
Yeah,
know there's no way to really get those answers. So let's fast forward. Let's go back
yeah,
to when you started working for the post apartheid government,
yeah,
Nelson Mandela's government, and you were now working with people who had come from their own bubbles. That must have been very challenging for most people because there was so much learning going
yes,
on.
absolutely.
And your curiosity enabled you to do, as you said a moment ago, step back, pause, reflect, and have some empathy and curiosity. I'm assuming a lot of curiosity about those other bubbles. What do you remember? This is asking a lot because that was,
Mm,
that was
yeah,
a lot going on at the time. Plus, you were working in a new job. My goodness, right?
yeah.
You just come out of university. Do you remember how you handled, or if others around you, how they handled the intensity and the demands of those encounters? I mean, do you remember how you held on to the understanding that it's worth pausing, asking questions, being curious, having empathy? I'm looking for how you handled the challenge.
Yeah, it was an extremely challenging environment for everybody. And I think, I mean, tensions flare, aggression blooms in that situation, tensions, frustrations bloom in that situation, and I think it's constantly, you know where you came from, and you know where you want to go, and I think nobody wanted to go back. And that I think is probably when I reflect on it is just nobody wanted to go back. There was the only thing you could do was go forward, and you could only go forward together. And I think that encapsulates it, because if you didn't have that mindset, that you can't go back or you don't want to, and it's a dark place. I don't want it anymore. It's having that will to go forward.
Wow, so that was a very resilient state. I mean, because yes, I mean, I don't think many people could imagine what that was
Yeah,
like. And I would say, to some degree, all humans face a very small segment of that or piece of that
yeah,
on a daily basis when we encounter people we who come from the rural area versus an urban area, one religion or another, but to have it all happen at once.
yeah. And it wasn't easy, just let me to make it clear. It wasn't easy. It was difficult, and it still is. If I look back, I've only moved out of South Africa 3 years ago, but I look back, it's a lot of building to get there. It's a slow journey, but like I say, it was just having that mindset that I don't want to go back to where it was.
Yeah. That really does speak beautifully of
Yeah,
resilience, and
yeah,
and I love I try to remind or let the viewers know if I look down, it's because I'm jotting down some of
yeah,
your
yeah,
words because they're so important. You know where you came from, you know where you want to go, and nobody wants to go back.
yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's very, very powerful. So how about curiosity for you now? How do you are you aware on a day-to-day basis when your curiosity is really alive and when it's a little dormant or quiet?
Yes.
Do you notice
I
that?
think in the corporate world you do. You absolutely do. And sometimes I think it's I wouldn't say it's acceptable, but you see it in the work pressure, where you need faster responses, you need quick solutions. There's no time to really ask the questions, to dig deeper. look at alternatives, have divergent thinking, and you have to make a quick decision. So there is a place and time when that's required. And I think that's where we say curiosity sort of narrows. You almost need to kind of stay in your lane and it because of the situation you're in. But as far as possible, I mean, that's when I say I notice it. You need to encourage that with our leaders. You need to encourage that curious behavior. So, one of the things linked very closely to curiosity, and I work for a tech company where innovation is really important. And what drives innovation? Curiosity. So we need to create environments that encourage curiosity because it drives innovation.
Do you have a sense that that is a commonly held understanding among people in your organization?
Yes, I definitely think so. There is a high focus on innovation because it's who we are. If we cannot innovate and be sort of cutting edge leaders in technology, then yeah, then that's where we need to be. You need to have that balance of, like we say, when we look where we are in the world today, with everything moving at the pace it's moving, you need to create the space for curiosity and innovation.
Okay, I'm gonna go way off in left
Yeah.
field here when you're talking about innovation. And probably because of what I've been reading and listening to in various news-related broadcasts, and it's around AI.
Hmm.
And I'm actually really curious. I don't hate to overuse that term, but
Yeah.
it is true. If you think there's a way that AI can actually foster curiosity, or is that something that we really have to work to protect when we get involved in using AI?
I would say a little bit of both because absolutely fosters curiosity. You constantly challenge yourself, I think, in the environment, and you constantly challenge. If we look at, AI models as an individual, that's where your brain as a you've got to constantly challenge it for it to work. So I think a little bit of both, absolutely.
That has been my experience, and I engage with AI when I'm pondering a concept, and I do agree. I think it's very stimulating because
Yes.
it gives me access to certain research information, which then makes me ping to something else, and then I try to find the relationship between the two, and it becomes like a conversation. But yeah, I do wonder about that. So I have something that I want to share.
Yeah.
I've been coming up and using. I find that I'm using more and more this metaphor. Almost like I'm creating two main archetypes to explain curiosity to some people, is one can either be an explorer or one can be a navigator.
Mhm.
So a navigator, in terms of curiosity, a navigator has a destination of a determined destination, has a goal, probably has a map, one would hope,
Mhm.
and tries to stay on course. So it might be somebody who's looking for information on something, who is
Yeah.
interested in a topic, but they know what they want and they know when they get there. And obstacles can be frustrating because they get in the way of getting to the goal. Then you have the explorer, and that metaphor for that type of curiosity for me is maybe that person has a destination, but it meanders around, and if there's an obstacle, it might open another door to another question.
Hmm.
So it's less important to get to the absolute end goal. The journey's more important. So I feel like I mean, I know from research there are a lot of different types of curiosity, and they all have very specific
Yeah.
names, including empathic curiosity, which is,
Yes.
I think, what you used a lot. You still do, I know, but particularly navigating the changes in 1995 and beyond in South Africa. I tend to have both going on in any given moment. I might be navigating because I want a specific type of information and I'm after kind of an answer. But then it's like the explorer comes in and then it takes me off course and I go to just exploring and I'm just watching this happen. And then 3 hours later, I don't know what I'm doing. So how would you describe your
Yeah.
curiosity?
And I think it's about a time when you look in your personal situation about when you've used it. It's about a time in your life. And I can totally relate to both. In fact, the other day someone said to me, "Oh, it was something the way I framed it," and they said, "No, it makes you sound very laid back." And I said, "I don't like that term. I'm not a laid back person." I'm definitely, I think in that case, I wasn't the explorer. So I think it's about, where you are in your space or in your time, I think. And there's a time and space for every sort of type of curiosity, like you frame it. I mean, if I think my journey through life, when you look at sort of the experiences I've had, whether it was where I've come from, where I've grown up, grief to a large degree, personal grief. I mean, I talk about it. I lost my fiance 5 years ago. My dad, when I was 24. Sort of personal grief to overcome that, and then also navigating, having lived sort of globally in different countries. And when you reflect on the impact that has had on you, so you look at it and you ask yourself, yes, there were times when I had a goal. My goal was I needed to get out of the country. I needed a job in another country. There was a time, and that was a goal. Or I was just exploring my career and deciding where in HR I wanted to be with particular field. And on that journey, when you look at it, you look back and you think, yes, there was some navigating, there was some exploring, and it's what got me to where I am today.
And you're quite happy where you are today.
Absolutely.
For a lot of people being in HR. And it's interesting because, okay, I've known you for about a year, and
Yeah.
I would say we've had 3, maybe 4 long conversations, but I feel like those are so deep and wide that I feel like I know you more than 4 conversations worth. But I do think my sense is that you have both that high empathy and that high human interest, and you also have a really strong business sense and a lot of business acumen and technical. Sort of, you have a technical part of your brain too. Would you say that that describes kind of your makeup, your cognitive brain makeup?
Absolutely. You talk about that sort of brain makeup in terms of, the technical makeup and, the empathetic side as well. But you constantly, when you work in a corporate environment, you're very sort of solution driven. You're focused on looking at alternatives, looking at solutions. That's what, in your role from a sort of business perspective, it's bringing, the people and the business strategy together. So you're constantly in this solution driven environment. It's like fix it, make it better, fix it, and move on. And I think I mentioned to you, I recently started volunteering for an organization that looks at preventing suicide, people taking their lives. And I'm still in training, so not there yet. But one of the sort of difficulties of that is that you have to just listen and be curious.
That
And
really touches my heart. Thank you for
yeah,
thank you for sharing that. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, it's almost unlearning to a large degree because you really have to sit there. You cannot judge. You just have to listen, and you can't provide a solution. You have to be in that person's reality.
Wow. Yeah.
And you got to cross over into their reality. It's helping me, you won't believe it, to some large degree in the workplace, because I think there's a place and time where sometimes you need to be in an individual's reality, because having that ability to do that allows you sometimes to take a step back and look at it differently, to have a completely different view of what's really happening. So that's the bit that I'm exploring now with me personally, or practicing, should I say. So a bit of an experimentation on my side.
What a beautiful example of, and I love the verb you just used. I think practicing is super appropriate. That we are practicing being curious. We are
Yeah.
practicing entering somebody's reality. I love that you said it's helping you to a large degree at work.
Yeah.
And before you said that, a question bubble was forming for me, a curiosity piece was around how do you protect, you mentioned that at the beginning of our conversation, how do you protect your curiosity? Well, this is clearly one way. I don't know that you went into this thinking, I'm going to protect my curiosity by learning how to
No.
really just listen, but it just happened, it unfolded. That's so beautiful that you're
Yeah.
doing that. It is a long training program, I know.
It's going well. I'm enjoying it. I wanted to do something in volunteering. I wanted to use my skills. I want to give back. But I also wanted to, when you're in a new country, you want to really understand more about people. You're working in a corporate environment, you're in this little bubble, and you want to know more. And I think it's always been a lifelong dream to live and work abroad. But it's about immersing yourself in a culture, in a country, in an environment. And this is really gives me sort of the true life sort of stories, the struggles of individuals, of people in general. They were just wanting help. And I have a mentor, and she keeps telling me, be curious, be curious. And I think, oh my God, I'm always a curious person. How much more curious can I be? And that's one of her sort of key lines to me in the early days was, Kubi, you need to ask more questions. You need to.
I love it.
Yeah.
You're upping your curiosity game for somebody who came already very curious. But I think you made a, well, I'm taking this point away. I don't know if you meant it. I think you did, but you
Uh,
can slap me down if not. That working in a corporate environment can chip away at our curiosity
yeah.
because of time and other constraints. And back to protecting. So, yes, you're protecting. This is what I'm hearing out of this. You
Yeah.
are definitely protecting and growing your curiosity and re engaging with it by being part of this volunteer service. Are there other ways that you protect your curiosity?
I think it's again with if I look at it, I'm so fortunate to have good leaders around me. And if I think through my career as well, I've worked with various CEOs, directors, heads of functions, and that's where I've just been a sponge, I would always say, because they have, apart from teaching you business acumen, working for a company that's, well, engineering tech space, where innovation is key, they've nurtured and held fast to this topic of innovation and development of design. So I think I'm blessed in that degree when I look at sort of senior leaders or peers or even managers that have sort of coached and mentored me as well. That is sort of, when I look through my career, those individuals have really created that space.
Mm.
Yeah, and nurtured it.
Oh, I could talk to you forever, Kubi. I'm looking at the clock and going, we've
Yeah,
already gone over by 30 minutes with Kubi.
yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll do a follow-up. How's that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll
But
be in
it's
UK for 6 weeks.
you have to come visit here.
Well, I look forward to that and another conversation over tea. And
Yeah.
thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Colleen. Really appreciate it. You have a
Evening.
lovely day. Bye.
Bye.